This isn't my house. Written by Greg388. Read by no one and nobody. Chapter 1. This isn't my bathroom. The man was confused. Closing the door and reopening it only brought upon the same confusion. What the man was looking into was not his bathroom. It was indeed similar, in the sense that it was still a bathroom and still took the same spatial area of his abode, but the similarities abruptly cease at that point. The normal blue drywall had seemingly been replaced with perfectly seamless wood, as if the walls had grown to form the room. The usual white tiled floor had also been replaced with the same material. The man set his confusion aside for a brief moment, as his bladder made its way back to the front of his mind. There was a mission to accomplish. The unicorn was equally confused. Staring into what should have been the sanctuary from the day-to-day madness of the rest of the world, she could only see a blue-walled, white-tiled affront to all that was sacred. This was most certainly not her bathroom, and the most unwelcome anomaly she could possibly imagine. Using the lavatory, just received a new neighbor on her checklist. Examine the new bathroom. The man had a few difficulties. Unable to find the light switch, he simply left the door open to avoid taking aim in pitch black. The toilet, if that is what passed for a toilet nowadays, was an odd target. It was an opening, raising itself out of the floor, stopping just short of the calf, and could be proven to have a constant stream of water flowing through it, if one were to peer inside. The man shook twice before his mission was declared successful, and searched more thoroughly for a source of light so that he may continue his morning ritual. There, attached to the wall, rested 2 lanterns. The man went to retrieve a box of matches from another room, so that he may bathe with an absence of darkness. The unicorn put on a scowl as she searched for the room's lanterns, but could find nothing to indicate their presence. Her search came to a halt as she spotted an oddity protruding from the wall by the doorframe. A switch? Reaching out with her magic, she carefully raised the small device. The room was suddenly illuminated in crisp, bright light. Blinking in surprise, the unicorn quickly pinpointed the source of the light. From the middle of the ceiling hung a small orb, shining brighter than any lantern. Before the unicorn could investigate the odd orb further, she was reminded of her initial reason for visiting the room. Closing the door, she set upon her business. The tub of soapy water could barely fit the man. The bubble-laden broth threatened to slosh over the sides of its container even more than it already had as the man fiercely scrubbed himself in the cold liquid and dim light. Despite the uncomfortable bend he had to make in his knees so he could even fit in the tub. The man shivered as he scrubbed. Apparently this new bathroom believed in neither hot water nor showers. She glared at the porcelain behemoth before her. This was not any sort of toilet she knew. The first issue was that the beast was high enough for her to rest her chin upon it while standing. The second obvious problem was that the device had some form of raised back, which could prove difficult for her to rest comfortably against with her tail. Despite these issues, she had no choice in the matter. She would have to figure out this toilet. Carefully, the unicorn leaned forward until her posterior was airborne and attempted to delicately place it upon the seat. She succeeded only in slipping off of it and onto the floor. Turning to face the toilet, which she was convinced was mocking her, the unicorn decided to take a much more forward approach and threw herself onto its seat, wrapping her legs around the back of it to cling on. The triumphant grin on the unicorn quickly disappeared as she noticed an odd sensation about her tail, almost as if it were wet. Looking back in sheer terror, she discovered that her tail was indeed wet, for it had dipped itself into the bowl. The unicorn flailed in disgust, attempting to retrieve her tail from the least wanted bath it had ever gotten, not noticing the metallic lever until her foreleg pushed it down. What she did notice was the sudden loud roar from the toilet and the suction brought upon her tail, the strength of it pulling her backside down through the seat, forcing her legs up against her body. It was then she decided that she cared nothing for the evil toilet. the man shakily rose from the water as he pulled the stopper from the drain, his joints popping in protest of their time confined so uncomfortably. With care, the man stepped from the tub and quickly braced himself against the wall as the slick floor attempted to betray him to gravity's cruel embrace. He would have none of that. Making sure to keep the encouraging support from the wall, the man moved towards what he assumed to be the cupboard where towels were stored. Pleased that his assumption was correct, the man withdrew one of the thicker-looking towels and proceeded to dry himself as best he could. The unicorn stood in an oversized tub, not the least bit pleased with the experience provided to her by the strange toilet. The toilet itself was equally displeased with what the unicorn had provided it, as its still intact seat rested neatly on the pile of magically shattered porcelain that was once its bowl. Magically turning a handle above the faucet, the unicorn waited with a hint of fear visible on her features. The fear was replaced with relief as water poured forth from the faucet. Looking for the plug belonging to the drain, the unicorn's eyes fell upon a small lever directly above the faucet. Licking her lips and releasing an audible gulp, she fearfully flipped the lever with her magic. The unicorn stared in confusion as the water cut off for a moment, then yelped in terror as a moment later the water returned, only it was bombarding her from above. The unicorn slowly began to let her fear go, as the water running over her appeared to hold no ill intentions. Allowing herself to enjoy some form of comfort from this strange bathroom, the unicorn magically squeezed a dab of what she assumed to be shampoo upon her back and began to lather it into her fur, as the water began to actually raise itself to a soothingly warm temperature. Idly, the unicorn pondered what enchantment had been placed on the tub so that the water would become warm as the temperature continued rising. The unicorn let out a yelp of pain as the water suddenly leapt to near boiling temperatures, an angry hissing coming forth from overhead. Falling over the side of the tub and onto the tiled floor, the unicorn pulled herself from the stream and magically turned the handle of the tub past the off position to the point it broke free of the wall. On his knees before an absurdly low sink and wall-mounted mirror, the man was carefully cleaning an unfamiliar toothbrush in a stream of cold water. Upon deciding it was clean enough to be permitted entry, he loaded it with what he assumed was toothpaste and began to fight off tooth decay. Dripping wet and severely disheartened, the unicorn pulled herself shakily up in front of a tall sink and mirror. Between the sink and mirror sat 6 odd holes, 4 rectangular in design, with a circular one set slightly below and between each pair of rectangles. Levitating a toothbrush which was not her own before her, the unicorn mentally decided that one day without brushing wouldn't be the end of her teeth and set it back where she found it. It was then that one of the unicorn's legs gave into weakness and buckled, causing the unicorn to slip and her horn to come into direct contact with one of the strange holes. The orb of light overhead burst. The man swirled water about in his mouth before spitting it into the sink. As he wiped the droplets left across his face with an arm, he rose to his feet and turned to leave the odd bathroom. As she sat in the middle of the dark room, the now slightly blackened unicorn decided she had taken all the punishment she would put up with from the foul and tainted bathroom that had replaced her beloved sanctuary with itself. Focusing all of her magic and fury on the thought of returning her own bathroom to its rightful place, she let loose a great lavender light from her horn and eyes as she cast the most powerful spell she had ever cast before. The man stepped out into the hall as a great earthquake began to rock his world. Turning around, the man watched in both awe and terror as space began to rip itself apart within the center of the strange bathroom. The man could only stare into the tear between worlds, while the bathroom was pulled inwards upon itself and the void. For a brief moment, the man was allowed to witness the whole of 2 worlds and all that lived within them. All of that which was realized and had yet to be dreamed was shown to the man through the small window to the space between the worlds. And in an instant, it was gone, replaced with a barren little room with exposed wiring and pipes. Shaking both the oddity of his bathroom missing and sudden sense of his place in the universe, the man closed the door to the room. He would deal with it after breakfast.